the Rambam says that the what do you call it? One commentary says, now imagine they would have found 10 tzaddikim, and Sodom wouldn't have been destroyed, right? What would the headlines in Sodom have said the next day? In the Sodom newspaper, Sodom saved by 10 tzaddikim, right? No, nobody knew. They didn't know that they were meant to. Avram Avinu knew that they were meant to be turned over. They didn't know. So it could have been very well. So you had 10 guys learning in a kollel, and Sodom would have been turned over, right? So you don't know what your effect. We only know that Torah protects us. Torah is the protection for us, and that a person has to know that look, there's always going to be a cause. What the visible cause. Whether it was the shin bet, or was this, or was that the other. At the end of the day, you don't know what your Torah is protecting. We don't know what the Torah is protecting us from, which is why we learn Torah, among other reasons. In any event, so there's an interesting Gemara. We're on Perek Aleph Pasuk Nun Daled. Now it says on page 744. So it says no. Whoa! I'm way off. Aleph Nun Daled. Page 732. 732. So it says, Vayasu, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, yesterday we started talking about the Levium, and Hashem tells the Levium that the Levium are going to camp around. Pick it up for the second line. V'Levium yachanu saviv leMishkan ha'edus. The Levium are going to camp around the Mishkan. V'lo yeketzaf al adas b'nei Yisrael. There will not be a wrath on the Jewish people. V'shabra al-Levium es v'yishmer es Mishkan al-edus. The Levium will guard the Mishkan. They're going to be around it. And then the next pasuk says, Vayasu b'nei Yisrael kachol asher tziva Hashem as Moshe came. So the Jewish people did what Hashem commanded. Now here the commentary says, well, what did they do? You just told me that the Levium have to camp around the Ohel Moed. The Levium camp around the Mishkan. And it's all about the Levium. The last 5 psukim are about the Levium, where the Levium are going to camp, and nobody should touch the Mishkan, otherwise they die. And then it says that the Jewish people did as Hashem commanded Moshe. Right? It doesn't say what they did. It doesn't say what they actively did. Page 732. It doesn't say what did they actively do. So there's an interesting Gemara, an intriguing Gemara. The Gemara says, it's a Gemara in Menachos on Daf Kuf Tes. Right? Oh, look at that. Oh, wrong Masechta. So the Gemara says, okay, not bad. Kuf Zayin, okay, not bad. 3 turns. So the Gemara says like this. The Gemara says that Rabbi Yoshua ben Prachya, who is the Rebbe, Rabbi Yoshua ben Prachya was the Rebbe of a very famous Jew in history named Yashka. Yeah, well, somebody had to be. And so Rabbi Yoshua ben Prachya says like this: if Tanya, the Brisa, Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Prachya. Yeah, by the way, there's a censored version. Can we turn on the air? There's a censored version of the Shas, because the Christian censors in the Middle Ages, they did not appreciate the Talmud Bavli talking about how Beis Din executed their God. Right? What's that? What's that? We're really, right. Now, sorry, the uncensored version. Right? In the we're learning the censored version. In the uncensored version, it tells the story. I have a couple of volumes of the uncensored. Somebody actually once printed a separate pamphlet with all the uncensored Gemaras. But the uncensored, according to the uncensored version in Sanhedrin, because in our Gemara it just says v'chulu, etc. when it gets to that point about people who get executed and that sort of thing. In the uncensored version, it says clearly that the Sanhedrin executed him, right? Because he was a Mesis and Mediach, he was inciting other people to idol worship, and it says clearly, the gentleman who just walked in, if you take Chumashim, somebody bring up Chumashim, we're on page 732. 732. Thank you, Yonah. So Rabbi Yoshua ben Prachya, and in any event, Rabbi Yoshua ben Prachya was his Rebbe, and Rabbi Yoshua ben Prachya said the following: Batchila, at the outset, Kol ha'omer alayla, anybody who would tell me to rise to a position of authority or prominence, ani kofso v'nosno lifnei hari, I would tie him up and place him in front of a lion. If somebody would appoint me to tell me that I should take a position of prominence, I would tie this guy up and place him in front of a lion. I don't think he means it literally, but he's trying to communicate an idea. I would tie him up and place him in front of a lion, which we learned in Baba Kama about what happens if you tie people up and place them there instead of having the lion actually feeding him to the lion, right? We learned about whether you're a grumma or whether you're Chai Misa, right? We learned this. It's all one Torah. How do you like that, right? It is bad mitos to tie people up and place them in front of lions, that we all agree about, but he's okay. Ata now kol ha'omerli leireid mimena Yeshua Prachi was the nasi. It's mentioned in Pirkei Avos, Yeshua Prachi v'nitar ha'ar Bailey. They're the zugos, among the pairs. In the beginning of Pirkei Avos, the first one mentioned is the nasi, the second one is the Av Beis Din, is the second in command. So Yeshua Prachi says, now that I've been there, if somebody would tell me to go down from this position, ani matil olav kumkum shel chamin, I would pour boiling, scalding water on him. That's what the Gemara says. A kumkum is like on Shabbos, the urn, the hot water thing. That's a kumkum. So it's a very strange. You talk about the nasi of the Jewish people. You talk about the highest ranking halachic authority, which means that there's perfection of character as well. And he makes this intriguing statement. Before I got this position of authority, if somebody would have told me to take the position, I would tie him up and place him in front of a lion. And now that I've taken the position, if somebody would tell me to go down from here, I would pour scalding water on him. Right? So the idea here is as follows. First of all, the commentary, why did, like anything else, a statement like this has to be analyzed with a Talmudic mind. Why either both of them should be fed to lions or both should have scalding water poured on them? What's the difference between tying somebody up and feeding him to a lion and pouring scalding water on him? Interesting that he uses two what he calls. He uses two things. So the Mefarshim explained like this. You see, first of all, why would he want to avoid a position of authority? So one of the Mefarshim explains, well, who was the first authority that we really find among the Jewish people that we find somebody rose to the position of authority is Yosef HaTzadik. Yosef became the king, and the Gemara says that Yosef predeceased all his brothers. Yosef was the king. He became king at 30 years old, or viceroy, whatever you want to call him, at 30 years old. He lived another 80 years, and then he died. He was 110 years old, and he died before his brothers. And we see in the Chumash that he gives the brothers the orders about getting his bones out of Egypt and burying them in Eretz Yisrael. He died before others. So why did he die before others? The Gemara says, because a position of authority buries the person who's taken it on. Now, that means two things. Number one, it buries you under responsibility, and number two, it could actually cause a person to die prematurely because of the responsibility, the pressure, and everything else. So Rabbi Shimon Prachya, he was saying, listen, if somebody told me to take a position of authority, what they would be doing is they're actually sentencing me to premature death. So my response is I would tie him up and put him in front of a lion. Now, why does he say I would tie him up and put him in front of a lion? Why doesn't he say I would throw him to hungry lions? Because if you tie him up and only place him there, so it's a form of grama. It's indirect. Right? The same way that if somebody forces you, if somebody appoints you to a position of authority, it's not direct murder, but he's putting you in he is a grama of causing premature death. So it's the punishment fits the crime. I wouldn't take him and feed him to a lion directly. I wouldn't push him but I would tie him up and leave him there and let a lion eat him. Okay, that's what hold on, questions answered. So that is the first. That's the first explanation of why he uses that. Now, when it comes to scalding water, if you pour scalding water, and so you usually don't kill him, right? What do? You just put him in intense pain. Okay? Maybe peel off a couple of layers of skin, but you don't kill him. So he's saying to you is to be appointed to the position in one way is worse than being taken down from the position. Because when you're taken down from the position, you didn't kill the person. I mean, to the contrary, you may have extended his life. Right? Because if you appoint him to the position of authority, the authority buries you. But if you take him down from the position, you're not killing him, but you are causing him pain. And therefore his response is somebody would take me down from the position, so I would pour scalding water on him. Now, hold the questions, I'll get to you. The question becomes, I mean, Rabbi Shimon Prachya is a very, very humble person. How could it be that somebody like that, he's chasing honor and prestige? That if somebody takes him down from the position, we're going to go, and what do you call it? We're going to go and you're going to scald him? What, you're saying you're such a chaser of, you're what's called a rodef kavod, you're in it for the glory, you're in it for the honor, and Yeshua ben Prachya, what's going on? The answer is The answer is that it's not a question of honor. It's a question of the essence of who the person becomes. It means when you take on a position, when you're given a position, I might why a person doesn't want that position. He doesn't want to be the leader of the community. He doesn't want to be the Rav. He doesn't want to be the head of the Sanhedrin. Once you've been placed in that position, that becomes, you live it, and that becomes who you identify with. That's the person that you identify with. You became that person. When he's pulling you down from that position, it's not the honor that Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachia is upset about. It's the fact that you have now reduced, you've taken away the essence of who I am. And therefore, a friend of mine suggested, that's why when you pour, he uses particularly scalding water, because A, it's painful, and B, you peel away a layer of skin. You've actually peeled away something from this person. You've peeled away part of who he is. Okay? Now, I'll explain this more in a second. Yeah, your name is? Itamar. Yeah, what were we going to ask?
Why is it like murder to put someone in a position of authority?
Oh, good. So again, it's not murder, direct murder, but we learned from the Talmud says that when Yosef HaTzadik, because he took the position of authority, he was the viceroy of Egypt, he predeceased his brothers. Because the position, authority, can cause premature death because of the pressures. Perhaps a person becomes haughty as a result, which also could terminate a person's life prematurely, and so on and so forth. So the idea of appointing somebody to that position is you're actually setting him up for an early death. And since he's being set up for an early death, so it's not direct, but it's what we call indirect. We call an indirect setup for death. And therefore, since it's an indirect setup for death, it's like hiring somebody to become a mafia hitman, right?
Vote, it's like
let's take the idea and think about it for a second. So if you take somebody and you hire somebody to become a mafia hitman, so many mafia hitmen statistically they die of lead poisoning themselves, right? Most of them do not die peacefully in bed. So you're creating a situation where somebody now. What I once asked the fundraiser. Somebody's a very big fundraiser. And I said to them, I don't understand. They always tell you fundraisers for yeshivas and organizations, that sort of thing. So I once asked them, I don't understand. They always tell fundraisers, I've never done fundraising, and certainly not in this Gilgul. But they tell you, fundraisers will tell you that if the stock market is up, that's a good time to go try to get money. You know, there are all sorts of Jewish causes. You need shuls and yeshivas and Shabbos relief organizations. You go travel, you go asking for, when the stock market is up, then you can go to the rich people. If the stock market is down, don't waste your time. They're not going to, people don't give, or if they certainly don't give much when the stock market is down. Now, why is that? So he explained, I said to the guy, I don't understand, if a guy's worth $80 million, should happen to me soon, say amen. If a guy's worth $80 million and the stock market is down, right? So he's now worth $79 billion. You know, I mean, I could get used to that. You know, he can't give you some money for you. He said, no, I'm having a rough time right now. I haven't got spare cash. You haven't got spare cash. You got a lot more spare cash than I do. He said to me, Dovid, you don't understand. So when a guy makes money, the guy's got $80 million. He makes an 81. Now he's worth $81 million because the stock market went up. For a certain amount of time, unidentified, undefined amount of time, that money he sees as profit, and therefore part of that profit he's going to give to tzedakah. Once the money becomes part of his base, he identifies himself with the base. If you go into a guy and say, can I have one of your fingers? Nobody's going to give you a finger. Right? Nobody's going to give you a finger, right? But as long as it's not attached to the hand, so then it's spare. Once it becomes attached to the hand, it actually becomes part of who the person is. You understand? And a guy, when the stock market is down, that means to give you part of my $79 million means this is, if they're for a man who's a money man, it's as if I'm giving you a finger, then I'm not going to give you. So the same thing when it comes to a position of authority, even a tzaddik, like Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachia, he isn't in it for the glory. But that's become his identity. That's who he is. So when you take him down, it's painful. What's that got to do with the Parsha? Because it says, "Vayasu b'nei Yisrael kachol asher tziva Hashem es Moshe keinu." So what did the Jewish people do? The Jewish people backed away from the Mishkan and allowed the Levium to take the place around the Mishkan. That means that there's a test over here. Otherwise, the Torah wouldn't be emphasizing the fact that they did something positive. There was a test over here. And the test is, if I say to you, and I've seen this happen in smaller places, if you sit in the front row of the shul, And the guy says, do you mind moving a couple rows back so I can take the seat in the front row to show? Hey, this is my seat. This is where I sit. And people sometimes do it. I want to sit next to the rabbi. I want to be in the front row. I've seen people do this even if it doesn't matter, it's significant. You sit in the 13th row of the shul. And the guy just asks you, do you mind moving 2 seats over? No, this is my place. Yeah, and therefore what? So you just move on. What's the difference if you're sitting here, you're sitting here, I'm not asking you to sit in the middle seat on a transatlantic flight. I'm just asking you to move over 1 seat. People become very, very, this is my place. This is my place, and I don't want this as part of me. And when I was in school, every time we hit the ball over the fence, there was a lady who lived next door when I was in day school. So you hit the ball over the fence, but we played baseball, so we had to lose half a recess because she wouldn't let us into the yard. Only the teachers, only the Rabbis could go into the yard together. She felt if the kids go into the yard, we're going to trample on her grass. Our argument was, yeah, but we weigh less than the Rebbe. If the Rebbe walks across the grass, he's worse. We're little kids. He's a big kid. No, it didn't work. So I remember we once asked the Rebbe, so why doesn't she move? Why don't move? She's an old mean lady. We used to call her Mrs. Meanie. Right? Isn't that original? Right? Why didn't she move? So he told us. The Rebbe said that he actually spoke. She said to her, listen, I've been living here all my life. This is where I want to die. I mean, hey, lady, we'll get you a mansion. It's just a lousy. It wasn't anything fancy. This is who I am. This is part of my identity. And therefore, the Torah is telling you, for the Jewish people to move back, step back, without anybody making a fight. And we've seen fights, because we will see a fight. Korach makes a big fight over having to feel reduced. And therefore, the Jewish people get credit over here for doing that. Okay, take a look at Pasuk Perek Beis, Pasuk Beis. Okay, this is also, all of this is so applicable. Next Pasuk. Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe v'Aaron Lemor. Ish al diglo ve'osos levesa vosa b'yachanu b'nei Yisrael. Each man on his flag and in his sign, they will camp. Mineged saviv lo me'yachanu. And now the Torah goes on and it starts giving the assignment of how the Jewish people are going to camp. Ve'achonim kedma mizracha. The ones who are going to be on the east side is Degel Machane Yehuda, is the tribe of Yehuda, the camp of Yehuda, and it's going to involve Yehuda, Yisachar, and Zvulon. So they're going to be divided now up. The Leviim are in the middle, and then you're going to have all the other tribes divided up east, west, north, and south, 3 on each side with 1 team captain. That's how the Jewish people are going to be divided up. And the Medrash says this is something they themselves requested, and the precedent for this was when Yaakov Avinu was carried out of Egypt by his sons. So he ordered and left the coffin should be carried in a certain way, 3, 3, 3, and 3, without Yosef carrying it. And that was Yosef was the king, he doesn't carry it. And these, exactly the way they carried Yaakov's coffin, is the way that they're going to camp around the Mishkan. So Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky Zatzal, he asks, this takes place, if you look in the 2nd year. Back on page 726, we're talking about the 2nd year of their having gone out of Mitzrayim. Why was this assignment only in the 2nd year? Why didn't this assignment come in the 1st year? Why was it the assignment of the way they're going? They camped before this. Why was the camping for the where they're going to be placed? Why did this only take place in the 2nd year? Why didn't it take place in the 1st year right away? What do you say?
They were mourning Yaakov.
Yaakov died a long time earlier. Yaakov died a long time earlier. Why did it have to wait till the 2nd year? So Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky says there's something changed between the 1st year and the 2nd year. And that was the building of the Mishkan itself. And the problem is that if we divide everybody up before there's a Mishkan, then you run the risk of factionalism. You run the risk of, okay, this is our group, this is your group, this is that group. And we have that problem even after a Mishkan. But the truth of the matter is that you're dividing us up, and there's no central unifying force. Once the Mishkan is built, and there's complete focus on the Mishkan, and there's a central unifying force, then we can afford to divide everybody up, and there's no danger of people getting caught up in their own project because everybody's on the central project. Yes, you have a certain role to play, you have a role to play. And I mentioned in the past the Gemara at the end of Tainus that says in the future, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to stand in the middle. The Gemara doesn't say which future it's talking about. The tzaddikim are going to go around in a circle, and they're going to point to the middle of the circle and say, Zeh Hashem kivinu lo nagila v'nisvecha b'shuasa. Everybody's going to be pointing to the middle of the circle where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in the middle of the circle. All the tzaddikim are going to go around. They're going to point to the middle of the circle. Zeh Hashem kivinu lo. This is Hashem that we hope for him. Nagila v'nisvecha b'shuasa. We will rejoice in his deliverance. So the question is, the Gemara says that tzaddikim are going to go around, and theoretically this is Gan Eden, where I'm assuming that we're talking about in Gan Eden, that tzaddikim are going to go around in a circle, and they're going to go around in a circle, and they're going to point to the middle. This is Hashem. Okay, wonderful. It sounds like a good party, right? No question about it. I'd like to be in that circle. The question that he asks is like this: why do they have to go around in a circle? Why doesn't everybody just stand in their place and point? Why do you have to go around in a circle? So, one of the explanations I hear from Rav Leff is that, you see, there are a lot of different groups. There are Ashkenazim, and there are Sephardim, and there are Moroccans, and there are people from Tunisia, and there are people from Europe, and Rashi was from Germany and France, and the Bali Tosas and Rashi of France and Germany, and the Rif and the Rush, the Rush was the Ashkenazi countries, France, Germany, the Rif. And the Rif and the Rambam and the Ramban and the Rashba and the Ritva, they were all from North Africa, and some were even in Egypt. You know, a lot of Jews from a lot of different places, a lot of customs, a lot of minhagah. Which one's right? They all are. Mine is the rightest, but they all are. Right? That's generally how I respect all approaches. If they really knew the truth, I mean, they'd obviously pronounce it with a sa, not a ta. But okay, we'll cut them some slack, yeah. But remember, they're thinking the same thing, and the Yemenites are thinking, well, if those Ashkenazim would get their act together, they'd be say Gimel and Gimel, right? They have different pronunciations. And by the way, the Yemenite pronunciation is probably the most correct pronunciation. There are proofs for that. You know what the proof is? What's the proof? What's that? Sound waves proof? What does that mean?
Some researchers, when they said the letters, they looked at the sound waves that it creates, and it's actually in the shape of the written letters.
Ooh, really? Oh, that'd be pretty cool. Can you email me that? That's what they said. The sound waves. It'd be interesting. Okay, I have a proof from the Gemara. Excellent. The Gemara says that when you say Shema, you should prolong the Dalid at the end of Echad. You should prolong that Dalid to think in your mind that Hashem rules the heavens, the earth, and the four corners of the universe. Now, I would like to thank you very much. Brachos 13. You sure? Good. And the what do you call it? By the way, Echad is the gematria of 13. What do you call it? So what do you call it? Now, I'd like to see, gentlemen, say the word echad and try extending a dalid. No, I didn't say that. That's because you're cheating, right? Try to pronounce it like an Ashkenazi and extend the dalid. You basically, either your eyes will pop out of socket, right, or everything, all matter within your skull will come out your ears, right? But try it. You can actually injure yourself there. I don't want to see anybody walking out of shul wearing a neck brace. What happened? I was saying Shema. No, that's not what's supposed to happen. But according to the Yemenites, a dalit is pronounced as a th sound. So then the Gemara, which was written in Babylonia, starts to make the echad. That you can do also. Your nose gets a little itchy when you do it, but other than that, at least there are no neck braces, right? But and by the way, the halacha says openly, you don't expend some people, trying to compensate for that, some people go, echad. Yeah, that's not extending the dal, that's expending the ches. And some people say, echadeh, right? And which is clearly wrong, and it says openly in halacha that is incorrect. So you have proof. Now, at the end of the day, everybody's got a different minhag. And then you got Hasidim, and even within Hasidim you have Vizhnitz, and you have Ger, and you have what do you call it? You have a Satmar, and you have Klosenberg, and you got all over the place. They're all over the place. So which one is right? The answer is, and not only that, you have certain people who serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with intense focus on Torah study. You have certain people who are very particular about halachic observance. You have certain people who are into davening. which way and which ones and which group is right? And the answer is that in the future, we'll find out that everybody who served HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from where they were standing and their vantage point, that was their way of serving, just like there are 12 tribes, and one tribe didn't have the same job as the other one. Yisachar studied Torah, and Zvulon supported them by being merchants. How will you find that out? The tzaddikim will be in a circle, and you'll go around in the circle, and at that point you'll be seeing HaKadosh Baruch Hu from where the vantage point that the other group saw him. And as you go around, you'll be saying, wow, Zeh Hashem Kivino, now I understand where he was coming from, and I understand where he was coming from, and this group or this person with his challenges and his life circumstances, how he served the Kodesh Baruch Hu, and everybody's going to see. Because when I stand here and I think about how you see a Kodesh Baruch Hu, I say, well, you're good. My way's better. My way's better. That's why somebody once came to one of the Rabbanim and he said, why don't all Jews just join up together and have one nusach? Of course, thinking his nusach. Right? Which is the way, when somebody says one nusach, why don't you do it my way? So at the end of the day, there is no one right way. There is no one right way. And therefore, each tribe, every Shevet has a role in every Shevet. But that's got to be only after the Mishkan is built. After the Mishkan is built, everybody could channel it inwards. If there's no Mishkan and everybody's assigned a different place in a different area, then you always run the risk of people spreading far, far apart. I think I told you once that a Reform rabbi met Rabbi Simcha Wasserman, some sort of convention. And he said to Simcha Wasserman, why are there so many different streams of Judaism? Why is there so many different types of Jews? So Simcha Wasserman said to him, listen, every army has different branches of the army. There's the Marines, and there's the Air Force, there's the ground troop, the tank corps, the Navy. Every army has different groups. We're all Hashem's army, so there are different branches of the army. So he smiled, he said, and which branch of the army is Reform? So Simcha Wasserman said, listen, every army has deserters. You have to wait. What's that?
There's no merit to the honest truth, like you say, everyone has their own way, that there is a one.
Excellent question. There is one right way. It's called the Torah. And within that Torah, there are different ways of serving. There is one ultimate truth. It's called the Torah. Christianity is not part of that truth, and Islam is not part of that truth. Within Torah, since there are different people, and no two people are alike, the Gemara says, just as their faces are not similar, their temperaments are not similar. No two people have the same temperament. Different people have more of an inclination, and it also depends on your background. One person may have been raised 7th generation Yerushalmi. He's going to have a different task in life than a person who is 1st generation Kansas City, right? Because he has different life circumstances. So there is one ultimate truth, but within that ultimate truth, there are, as long as it's the same like you play chess? Good. So in chess, there are many different moves and many different possibilities and combinations, but they have to stay within the board. You cannot take your knight and jump off board for a move and then come back on from the side and get him when he's not ready, right? Because then you veered off of the board. And within the rules of chess, your rook cannot jump over pawns, only your knight is allowed to. But it's all one game and with different rules. I'm not going to go into it now. I don't want to spend more time. I don't want to go back to the Parsha. But that's the answer to your question. Your question is right. There is one ultimate truth. That's God and God's Torah. Within the Torah, there are different ways of serving, each person according to the guidance that he gets and according to other many myriad factors. Okay, now take a look at Pasuk Vav, Pasuk Zayin. Start with Pasuk Hey. Vehachonim olav mata Yisachar, those that camp next to Yehuda is going to be the camp of Yisachar. It's 6 lines from the bottom, until 732. V'nasi livnei Yisachar Nesano ben Suar. The prince of Yisachar is Nesano ben Suar. Then it takes account of how many there are there. And then on Pasuk Zayin says, Mate Zvulun. V'nasi livnei Zvulun Eliyav ben Chelon. Now there are 2 questions here. Question number 1 is normally in all the other shvatim where it says their name it always starts with a vav, umate, right? If you look on the next what do you call it? On the next page, Degel Machane Ruvain, Utzva'o, right? It says Ruvain, and then look at the and Pasuk Yud Daled, 6 lines from the top, on 734, Umate Gad, right? And the camp of Gad, okay? And then when it says Shimon, where is Shimon? Shimon. Where is it? Yud Beis? Utzva of Umate. Whenever it says mate, it's umate. And here it just says mate. When it starts the pasuk with the word mate, it's always with a vav. Here it just says mate Zvulon. Sounds like they're independent. Now, we know that there's a connection between Yisachar and Zvulun, which is what? I just mentioned it before. Yisachar studied Torah, and Zvulun went out and they were the merchants who supported Yisachar. Not only that, nowadays we have what's called a Yisachar-Zvulun arrangement, where you can pay, if you earn money, and you support somebody to study Torah, and supporting him to study Torah means that you make it possible for him to study Torah, that you are supporting him fully. Without your money, he wouldn't be able to study Torah. Then you get half of the reward he gets for studying Torah. That is and there are actually contractual agreements that are made nowadays, Yisachar, Zvulun arrangements that are made nowadays where you could actually make a partnership. And by the way, every marriage is that partnership. Every marriage, a man who studies Torah, it doesn't matter if you're studying Torah in Kolo full-time or if you're studying Torah part-time. A man who studies Torah, his wife is a full partner in his studying, and in certain ways, his wife is even better off than he is. Because when a man is supposed to be studying Torah for, let's say, 3 hours in the morning, and he gets up and kitzels around and schmoozes, and but his wife does her job full-time. So sometimes, in certain ways, but it's a partnership, and you're going to split that schar in the world to come. The same thing with Yisachar and Zvulun, and it's actually a contractual relationship. Now, what's strange here is that twice they got brachas. They got a bracha from Yaakov Avinu, and they got a bracha from Moshe Rabbeinu. Yaakov Avinu gives them a bracha in Parshas Vayechi, and Moshe Rabbeinu gives them a bracha in the end, the last Parsha of the Torah, Zos bracha. And both times, who's put first in the bracha? Zvulun is put ahead of Yisachar. So, yet over here, when it's arranging the tribes, it puts Yisachar ahead of Zvulun. Why does the Torah reverse? Why does the Torah reverse it? Number one, why isn't there a vav over here? So the Mefarshim explained that when it comes to the brachas are emphasizing that when it comes to bracha, when it comes to reward the world to come, Yisachar and Zvulun are going to split the reward. They're going to split the reward in the world to come. Because Zvulun makes it possible for Yisachar to learn Torah. The Rambam actually had a brother, I think his name was Dovid, if I'm not mistaken. The Rambam had a brother who supported the Rambam. He was a merchant who supported the Rambam. I think I'm getting this right. And then his brother went lost at sea. And as after his brother went lost, he lost his support from his brother. That's when the Rambam became a doctor, and he was the doctor for the what he called the king in Egypt. He was the doctor for the sultan or whatever he was called there. But he had somebody who supported him. He had a Yisachar Zvulun relationship with his brother. Yisachar, when it comes to the bracha, the Torah emphasized Yaakov Avinu and Moshe Rabbeinu are emphasizing Zvulun, who worked to support Yisachar. They're going to get the reward just like Yisachar. But here we're talking about prominence. We're talking about where the tribes are stationed. And there's a halacha that if there is any sort of honor to be given, like in a shul, let's say there's one aliyah, and it's, let's say, shlishi, who gets the aliyah in the shul? If there's a Talmud Chacham there, the Talmud Chacham goes. In all areas of prominence, the Talmud Chacham comes first. So when it comes to the reward they're going to split evenly. But when it comes to, when it comes to the honor on an objective level, the Talmud Chacham still occupies a position. Somebody once said to Rav Shach, Zatzal, and this has been recorded, I think, with other Gedolim as well. Somebody said, I don't understand. What's the difference between Yisachar and Zvulun? They both going to get the same reward in the world to come. So Shach said, you're right. Zvulun is going to get reward in the world to come with Yisachar. But Yisachar's got Olam Hazeh. He's got this world. The guy who studies Torah has this world. The guy's out in the business world. He's running around all day getting. He's in the dog-eat-dog world. The Yisachars of the world, they enjoy this world. They're sitting in a base of matters. They get to learn and they get to use their minds and so on and so forth. So sometimes people think it's the opposite. Oh, the poor guy in the base medrash, the poor guy's fetching away on Baba Kama over there again. On what happens if you didn't tie up your cow properly? And I get to have fun going out to the going out to do business and to be a lawyer and all that stuff. If a person wants to enjoy satisfaction and fulfillment, the reward, you want to take that on and support Torah, it's a great thing. But by the way, you got to do it in advance. You can't buy it at the end. You can't get a guy on his deathbed says, hey, I'll buy some of your Torah. Doesn't work that way. That's too late. If you do it, and just one other point, if you donate money to support Torah, you certainly get reward. You certainly get reward if you support Torah for every minute, for every penny that you give to support. You certainly get reward for that. For the Yisachar Zvulon arrangement, it has to be you're making it possible for him to learn. And not only that, if you take a hit on the market, you deduct from yourself, not from him. I mean, the point that he is your priority. He is a contractual obligation. If a person enters that sort of obligation, at a certain point you can terminate it. I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. But you have to realize that he becomes your number one priority, your number one financial priority. Ezra, you're going to ask a question.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the names Yisachar and Zvulun, and wondering if that is only the way that it's described. Because when they're naming, I remember Yisachar, he will increase my
reward, right?
Yeah, but is there also maybe a connection between that and
that I don't know. I've never seen that.
What would be Zvulun? What is the root of the name Zvulun?
Oh, Kizavolani. I forgot what Rashi says. It's back in part. 1 second. What is the root of Zvulun? Here, Vayikra Shmo Zvulun. Ki Yalari Vatomer Leah Zevadani Elokimos Zeved Tov. How does he translate it? Leah Barsay Rai said, Hashem has endowed me with a good endowment. Zeved is some sort of Zeved Tov Kitargumo. Great. Chalak Tov, a good portion. It's a good portion. I don't know. We can speculate, but I'd rather say what I know, what I don't know. Which is plenty. What time is it? Okay, one more point. Pasuk Yud Zayin says V'nosa Ohel Moed Machane Alavim, page 734, Pasuk 17. V'nosa Ohel Moed Machane Alavim Bisocha Machanos. The Ohel Moed, the camp of the Levium, travels in the middle of the camps as they traveled. Kasher Yachanu. As they camp, Kain Yisau, Ish al Yodo Lediglehem. As they camp, so they shall travel. Now, first of all, the Levium were the teachers of Torah. They taught Torah to the Jewish people. That was their job. They didn't get a portion in Eretz Yisrael like everybody else. They were supported by the people. They got Meiser, the Kohanim got all certain various gifts. And the Meforshim explained like this. First of all, it says, Kasher Yachanu Kedisa. Now, normally when you travel, people travel, it's kind of random and haphazard. You basically get assigned a seat, you travel, you're kind of informal, you hope you get a meal if you get into a car. There's very little organization in travel. You travel, the goal is to just get there. Right. Here, yet if you're sitting somewhere, especially with a dignitary, when you're sitting in front of a dignitary, if you're invited to a wedding, it's very formal. You sit at table 17, and you sit at table 11, and everything is very organized. If you sit in a shul, everybody's got a seat. It's very, very formal. Here, the Torah says, as they camped, and they camped in an organized manner. They camped. Remember, they camped 3, 3, 3, 3. Kain Yisou. They're all going to camp. They traveled in the same order. It wasn't all about, okay, let's go, everybody. Everybody masses out. Right? If Ohr Somayach makes a trip, so all the programs are mixed together. If Ohr Somayach is sitting in the yeshiva, so everybody's got their place. With the Mechina is obviously the Levium, the Mishkan in the middle. But everybody in the yeshiva has got their place. But if there was a group travel up to Meron together on a year that you don't get turned back. Right? So if the whole yeshiva was going there, 6 buses are leaving. Everybody get on wherever you want. Let's go. Here, they traveled the same way that they camped. Why? It's like a presidential motorcade. In a presidential motorcade, everything is assigned, isn't it? Everything is very, very clear in a presidential motorcade how you work with the policemen on motorcycles and this and yes. And nowadays, I think they have a bunch of what are those black, what do they call the SUVs or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, which with bulletproof, and you don't even know which one the president is in. Right? Where I think I once read that when Obama went to a different country, they described how many vehicles are in the presidential motorcade as security vehicles. I think there were like 22 vehicles. You know, you got motorcycles, you got this, you got that, and you don't even know which one he's in. A few of them are decoys.
There's like 3 presidential motorcades, and they all go in different like routes.
You don't even know which one is the motorcade. It's mamish a svexveka. You know, there's not even a suffix of the svexveka. You don't know where, you know, in a motorcade, and if he is, which one is he in? I mean, your chances are. So here, you're talking about a presidential motorcade. So everything is very organized, number one. Number two, and this applies to us gentlemen. When a person is somewhat adopts a approach to life which puts him in the situation of being the spiritual leaders. That means when a person becomes from and a ben Torah and a person studying Torah, so sometimes there's a tendency to withdraw. I don't want to have anything to do with any of my old friends. I don't want to do with any of the society around me. I only want to stay focused, and sometimes I don't want to have anything to do with the people in the same room as me in the same yeshiva. I want to withdraw into myself. The Torah says by the Levium, "V'nosa ol moed machanei alavim b'socha machanos." You are mixed with the other camps. And this is a very big challenge in life. When a person, especially for often a Baal Tshuva, or a person makes a change in life and upgrades religiously, what do I do with those old friends and those old relationships? It's very, very tricky. It can be very, very challenging. And the first rule is with relationships. That's a cutoff. The non-male relationships, right? Those are off the chart. That's it. There's no, we don't do kiruv there, and there's no, what do you call it? That's one big delete button. Right? We were once learning in the concept in Gittin, the Gemara Gittin. We're learning about bittul, where a guy voids a get. Right? You push a void bittul, you void it, like delete on a computer. So one of the guys in my shir said to me, "Rabbi, is there any way to do bittul on past relationships?" Right? You know, push a delete button. It's very, very tricky. It's very, very tricky because this involves relatives who may not be observant, and it involves friends who aren't observant. Where that line is, on the one hand, we have to be social people. And this is a very, very delicate area where each person, anytime you have a question, you have to get guidance from people who've had experience. You have to speak to the Rabbi Gottliebs and Rabbi Bradowitzes of the world who have, the people who are, or a mentor that you have who has the sensitivity and the experience to know when yes and when no. There was a guy who came to Rav Shach, a Baal Tshuva came to Rav Shach, and he said his parents want him to come home for Shabbos, but they're not observant. Should he go home for Shabbos? So Rav Shach said to him, "Listen, honoring parents is a very, very important mitzvah." He said, "Yeah, but if I'm in the house, you know, there's the danger of Shabbos desecration." He said, no, it's usher to desecrate Shabbos. He said, "So I shouldn't go." So Rav Shach said, "Honoring parents is a very important mitzvah." He said, "Well, what about Shabbos?" He said, "Oh, Shabbos is very, very delicate." So he said, "So I shouldn't go." He said, "Honoring parents." No, he wasn't telling him to make up his own mind. He was saying you have to go. Just don't desecrate Shabbos, right? He wasn't telling you, he wasn't make up your own mind. You leave people to make up their own minds. That's how they end up in prison. No, don't leave people to make up their own minds. You just have to know, they have to know that it's very, very delicate, it's very, very fragile, and you have to know. Sometimes it's a very, very tricky thing. Rabbi Gottlieb once told me that he had a guy who, his parents invited him home they wanted him to come home for, I think, the high holidays. And he, being a very, very, let's just say an enthusiastic Baal Tshuva, he wrote them a letter detailing 10 reasons why he's not allowed to come home. His father, who was Reform, happened to be a friend of Rabbi Gottlieb's from the old days, and he was a very well-educated man, and he sent Rabbi Gottlieb the letter. This is back in the days of snail mail. Rabbi Gottlieb said 9 out of the 10 reasons that he wrote were incorrect, and the last one was probably incorrect. Now, the question of a Baal Tshuva going home and spending time with family, Sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes the answer is no. It could be sometimes if it's detrimental to one's spiritual level. So you have to, it's a very, very tricky and delicate thing. The Torah is telling you that there's no blanket, I'm exempt from my social responsibilities. The Levium were part of the Jewish people, and they were in the middle of Jewish people. I'm just telling you that on an individual level, when a question does come up and there's a concern, and you're not sure, should I do it or not, you have to have guidance for this, like you have to have guidance for any other area of Torah. Okay.